Mid-morning, about 10 o'clock, we'll find the result of the postal vote on same-sex marriage. We'll bring that to you live as it's announced. I expect it'll be a yes vote, but who knows. Today, 2 days before the result, Liberal Senator James Paterson has released a bill he says will legalise same-sex marriage, but also protect the rights of those who opposed it. Now, one of the problems we have here in this whole debate is the government has said, are you for or against, without saying how to be implemented, and that has been an issue. John Howard highlighted that. James Paterson is currently voting for a new president of the Senate in Canberra, who incidentally will probably be Victorian Senator Scott Ryan, who's been on this program often. He probably won't be able to come on if he's president of the Senate. So he's tied up with voting at the moment. So I recorded an interview with him and began by asking, why was it necessary to have a bill like this? What's he trying to achieve?
Well, I've long supported same-sex marriage and was proud to vote yes in the same-sex marriage survey, but I want to make sure that people's religious liberty, freedom of conscience and freedom of speech is protected if we are to legalise same-sex marriage, and that's what my bill attempts to do.
Isn't this, in fact, showing the failure of the government so far? Because we've been asked to make a decision on same-sex marriage without knowing the detail.
Well, the government's been clear from the very beginning that it would be a private member's bill that would legalise same-sex marriage, and we sought the opinion of the Australian people on whether or not the law should change to legalise same-sex marriage, but exactly how the law changes is up to the Parliament.
Yeah, that's what I mean. We voted on it without knowing what it'll do.
Yes, well, it was a survey, not a referendum. It wasn't a constitutional amendment we're considering now. We're considering a broad social issue, and putting that detail to a public vote I don't think would have assisted the process. I think it is up to the Parliament to design the detail of these things once we've got a clear indication from the Australian people whether they want same-sex marriage or not. You're
pretty sure that, and there's Wednesday, 10 o'clock, you're pretty sure it will be a yes vote, aren't you?
That's my guess. I suspect only about 30 to 40% of Australians will vote no, but I think their rights deserve just as much protection as the rights of same-sex couples to marry.
So what will your bill do?
It's got a couple of key provisions. Firstly, like all other bills, it protects the rights of religious ministers and civil celebrants to refuse to solemnise a wedding that's against their values, but it extends that right and grants a right of conscience objections to others involved in weddings. So no one could be forced to provide services to a wedding that is inconsistent with their values. It also sets aside some state anti-discrimination laws that heavily restrict free speech, in particular Tasmania's, which raises real legal questions about whether or not you can share your view about traditional marriage.
So even if I'm a florist, I'll be affected. I won't have to provide flowers to a gay wedding.
That's right, and the reason for that is that there's actually a case on this in the United States where a 70-year-old florist happily served a gay couple as clients of a florist shop for 9 years, and when they asked her to cater for their same-sex wedding when the law changed in Washington State, she declined and they sued her and she's been fined, and that case is now on its way to the US Supreme Court. I don't think that's a good thing. I don't want to see that happen in Australia. I want gay couples to have the freedom to marry, but I don't want that to come at the expense of anyone else.
Okay, other areas that it will touch?
Parental rights is another one. So the bill grants the right of parents to remove their children from classes that when the teaching is inconsistent with their values. That's important, as you know, in Victoria with a program like Safe Schools, which clearly very much clashes with the values of many parents.
So what does that mean in practical terms? There is a child is in a class and the class is being taught about gay marriage or something. What takes Safe Schools out of it? How does it relate to same-sex marriage?
Well, it's one of the concerns of people who are opposed to same-sex marriage that if the law changes, that it will be taught as the only definition of marriage in schools. And, of course, many people of faith believe that the traditional definition of marriage is the correct version of marriage. And all international legal instruments say that parents have a right to control the moral and religious education of their children. So this is a simple clause which just says children are allowed to opt out of classes that are focused on that.
Okay. Anything else? So you're talking about schools, you're talking about the weddings themselves. What else?
There's also a narrow anti-detriment clause that prevents governments from taking adverse action against people based on their traditional view of marriage. So, for example, the government couldn't withdraw funding from a charity if that charity promotes a traditional version of marriage.
Okay. And that covers it?
I think so. They're the main features.
All right. When will you take it to the party room?
Well, it's a Senate-only sitting week this week in Canberra, and we're not back for about another fortnight for a regular House and Senate sitting week. So I hope to have the opportunity to discuss it with my colleagues then.
How's this going to play out? Are we going to have private members bill at 20 paces? Liberal Dean Smith's doing his, you're doing yours. How's it going to play out?
Look, there is a chance of that, but I'm also optimistic that, particularly if we have the opportunity to discuss it in the coalition party room, that we might be able to come to an agreement between my bill and Dean Smith's bill so that coalition members and senators are only putting forward one bill, which we all agree with.
And well, the states aren't going to be too happy about overriding their anti-discrimination laws, are they? The freedom of speech laws.
They may not, but anti-discrimination is the main responsibility of the federal parliament, and in fact the United Nations has told us a number of times that the protections for religious liberty in Australia are inadequate and something that we need to address.
Okay, well look, thank you for that. Just on another matter, another shocking news poll, Prime Minister's gone backward, government will be decimated, political chaos with the citizenship business. It's all going pretty well, isn't it?
It's certainly not a great poll, Neil, and all coalition members would prefer to have a stronger one than that. But frankly, after the last 2 weeks, I'm surprised that it wasn't worse. I think the Prime Minister is responding to a crisis that he didn't create and is doing as best he can in doing that.
Well, that's true, but people have stopped listening, haven't they?
Look, that is always a danger, and I think over time we're going to have to earn back the support of the Australian people. I understand why they're frustrated. It is ridiculous that so many MPs then appear to be in conflict with the Constitution. That shouldn't happen, and they're entitled to be annoyed about that, and we're going to do our best to fix it as soon as possible. Can
Malcolm Turnbull turn it around?
I think so, absolutely.
I mean, there's more There's even a piece of the weekend saying John Howard should come back. What do you think about that?
Yeah, look, great respect for John Howard, but I don't think that's terribly likely. I'm not sure that's what his retirement plans envisaged. I think we can turn it around, and one of the reasons I think we can, Neil, is that despite everything, despite all the mess of the last few weeks, Australians still prefer Malcolm Turnbull to be Prime Minister than Bill Shorten.
Ooh.
That does not say much good about Bill Shorten at all.
Only just, and he's taken a bit of a hit, a hell of a hit.
That's not a surprise, Neil, with the mess of the citizenship crisis over the last few weeks, which, as I said, the PM hasn't caused that crisis, but he's dealing with it.
Any chance Tony Abbott returning?
No, I don't think so.
So I'll give you a list. Malcolm Turnbull, Tony Abbott, Julie Bishop, Scott Morrison, Peter Dutton. Who do you want?
Malcolm Turnbull.
Okay. And he'll go into the next election, no question?
I'm confident he will.
When?
When will the next election be? Well, it's not scheduled until early 2019, so I think there's been some speculation it could be earlier than that. I'd be surprised if it was earlier than that.
Thank you very much for your time.
Always a pleasure, Neil. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Liberal Senator James Paterson.